So there I was, navigating the strange intersection between building rockets, running companies, and somehow becoming a character that mainstream media alternately praises, ridicules, studies, and misunderstands. And I've realized over time that the more public the work becomes, the more people expect the person behind it to reveal everything. The doubts, the convictions, the weird late-night thoughts about humanity's future. And I never intentionally set out to be this public figure, but when you're trying to push electric cars into the mainstream or land a rocket upright on a tiny pad in the middle of the ocean, visibility becomes part of the job, and with visibility comes scrutiny, and with scrutiny comes this odd obligation to explain yourself constantly. So eventually I started sharing more openly. Thoughts about the future of consciousness, about AI alignment, about the fragility of civilization, about how faith and science don't actually need to be enemies, about how life can feel both absurdly small and impossibly meaningful when you're staring at Mars through a telescope, wondering whether humans will ever walk there. And every time I speak publicly, whether it's on a live stream, a podcast, a late night interview, or even a random post at 3 a.m., I can feel the world leaning in, some people curious, some frustrated, some cheering, some rolling their eyes, and I get it, I really do, because when someone builds companies that influence transportation, energy, AI, space exploration, and communication, people want to know who that person is, not just what they build, and sometimes that leads to fascination. This almost myth-making of the entrepreneur, the memification of a person who is basically just trying to solve problems. And sometimes it leads to criticism, especially when I speak candidly about government inefficiency or regulatory bottlenecks or cosmic risks that people don't want to imagine. And I've learned that if you say what you actually believe, unfiltered, a portion of the world will inevitably get angry, another portion relieved, another confused. But if you stop speaking honestly, you stop being useful. So I keep talking, maybe too much sometimes, maybe not enough at others, sharing the things that matter to me, that humanity should expand beyond Earth, that consciousness is rare and worth protecting, that innovation requires failure, that institutions must be questioned, that optimism is a moral duty. And yes, it's strange to see headlines dissecting my wording, speculating on motives, psychoanalyzing in my posts, but I've accepted that the public persona is something I can't fully control. All I can do is keep building, keep explaining, keep dreaming out loud, because if there's one thing I've learned from every launch, every setback, every late night engineering review, every unexpected viral moment, it's that the story people tell about you is never as interesting as the one you're actually living. And so I keep speaking, not to manufacture an image, but to share the vision that keeps me going, that humanity can be better, braver, multi-planetary, and free. And if that means being misunderstood sometimes, so be it, because the future is worth the noise. And as everything kept escalating, the companies growing, the launches increasing, the media attention spinning faster than one of our reaction wheels, I started noticing how people weren't just watching what I built, they were watching me, watching every little signal like I was some sort of stock ticker for optimism or disaster. And it's a bizarre thing to wake up and realize your casual comment about the meaning of life becomes a headline dissected by analysts who think there's a hidden agenda behind every sentence, when in reality, it's often just me thinking out loud the same way I did long before anyone knew my name, except now the microphone is planetary. And with that kind of amplification, even the smallest whisper becomes a roar. So, I figured if people were going to listen anyway, I might as well talk about the things I genuinely care about. Not the polished, PR-safe versions, but the actual messy, contradictory, human thoughts that come from spending too many nights staring at simulations of starship trajectories, or reading about ancient philosophy, or wondering why civilizations collapse and whether ours is drifting toward the same mistakes. And before long, I found myself talking about faith. Not because I had some grand explanation, but because I was trying to make sense of the universe, like everyone else. And talking about government because progress moves too slowly when bureaucracy weighs more than innovation. And talking about cosmic risks because ignoring them has never once solved them. And every time I opened my mouth, the reactions felt like a strange gravitational field, pulling in fans, critics, skeptics, theorists, people who think I'm saving the world and people who think I'm ruining it. But what they all have in common is that they're watching, analyzing, projecting, trying to fit me into one of those neat narrative boxes that humans are so fond of, like hero, villain, genius, fool, prophet, madman. But the truth is, I'm just trying to apply engineering logic to the problem of civilization. And that doesn't always translate well into headlines or 20-second clips. So, I've accepted that my public persona is basically a funhouse mirror, vaguely shaped like me, but stretched, distorted, sometimes hilarious, sometimes unintentionally terrifying. And no matter what I say, whether it's about the future of AI, or the need to protect free expression, or the importance of reaching Mars, someone somewhere will interpret it as a battle cry, and someone else as a threat. And yet I keep going, keep speaking, keep posting, because silence helps no one. And because I know that if humanity is going to survive long term, we need more than engineers. We need storytellers who can convince people the future is worth building. And if the universe has decided that I'm going to be one of those storytellers, whether I asked for it or not, then I might as well embrace it, flaws, controversies, misunderstandings, and all. Because every time I share what I believe, every imperfect, provocative, occasionally chaotic thought, someone out there hears it and thinks, maybe the future isn't impossible, and that more than rockets or cars or satellites or stock prices is what keeps me going. And the funniest part, or maybe the strangest, depending on how you look at it, is how social media became both a megaphone and a microscope, a place where I could speak directly without filters, but also a place where every word gets magnified into something far louder than I intended. And at first I thought the beauty of these platforms was that they allowed me to bypass traditional media entirely, letting me talk straight to millions of people the same way I would talk with engineers around a whiteboard. But I eventually realized that the more direct the channel, the more chaotic the reactions become. Because suddenly every post is interpreted as strategy, every joke as policy, every late night thought as prophecy. And somewhere in that chaos, I started seeing how fascinated people are not just by my ideas, but by the inconsistencies, the contradictions, The moments where I'm clearly just human and tired and thinking out loud. And some love that authenticity while others tear it apart like vultures. But I can't really blame them, because when someone has influence over rockets or AI or energy grids or communication networks, people instinctively look for signs. Signs of vision, signs of danger, signs of madness or brilliance. And maybe that's why I keep opening up about the things most CEOs would lock inside a vault. Because I think humanity benefits when leaders stop pretending to be machines and admit they're figuring it out as they go. And yes, that transparency sometimes backfires spectacularly, creating storms of criticism or waves of misunderstanding. But I'd rather deal with the storms than hide behind polished silence. Because silence is comfortable, but it kills ideas, and ideas are the only thing that carry civilization forward. So, when I talk about AI alignment or existential risks or the need for a multiplanetary species, I'm not trying to play philosopher or politician. I'm trying to light a fire in people who have forgotten how big the future can be. And sure, that means exposing myself to attack from those who think I'm reckless or egotistical or detached from reality. But what they don't see are the nights spent staring at failure reports, the weight of decisions that affect thousands of employees, the constant inner voice asking whether I'm doing enough or doing too much. And sometimes I wonder if anyone realizes how terrifying ambition can be when the stakes are civilization level. But I keep going because the alternative, playing it safe, worrying more about reputation than impact, feels like betrayal, not just of myself, but of the people who believe we can be more than a species, clever enough to invent miracles but too afraid to use them. And so I've accepted that my life will always be split between the engineering rooms, where everything makes perfect logical sense, and the public arena, where nothing makes sense at all. And somewhere between those worlds, I have to keep walking, speaking, building, posting, dreaming. Because whether people love me, hate me, misunderstand me, or meme me into oblivion, the work matters, the future matters, and if I have to live under the brightest spotlight on earth to push that future forward, then fine. I'll stand there and keep talking until the message gets through.